Welcome to Perpetual Motion with Dr. Mo Anderson. I'm your host, Dr. Mo, best-selling author, award-winning podcast host, keynote speaker, and speaker coach. My goal for every episode is to elevate, educate, and motivate you personally and professionally, which is why I interview phenomenal guests like Angie Heish. Angie is a certified professional organizer who does one-on-one, in-person, or virtual organizing. Honestly, I didn't even know that was a thing, that you could do virtual organizing, but I love it. She is also the author of a fascinating book. Check out this title, Unholy Mess, What the Bible Says About Clutter. I'm excited. Welcome, Angie.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Dr. Mo. How are you?
I am very well, and always excited about my guests, particularly when they're doing something to help me organize and improve my own life, because I am on a constant journey of self-improvement.
Oh my goodness, aren't we all?
Well, we all should be.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if you're not working on something in your life, then you're in trouble.
You are in trouble. You're stuck and you're not growing.
You're stagnant and you're going back. Yeah,
right. Before you started your business, Angie, Ship Shape Solutions, you worked in the fields of medicine and education. How did those lead to your current career path?
Oh my goodness, it is quite the twisty, turny route. So I actually started out in as a science nerd. I got an undergrad degree in biology, worked for a year at CDC, Centers for Disease Control, doing lab research.
Wow.
Yeah. Then I got certified to teach high school science. That was not for me. Then I ended up going to graduate school at Emory University, got a master's in medical science, worked as a PA, pediatric physician assistant.
Aren't you impressive? My.
I really loved medicine. But by that time, my husband and I had been married for 7 years. We had taken turns doing grad school, and I was ready to start a family. So we had our daughters. They are now 28 and 25. We're empty nesters. So for most of my adult life, I was home raising my girls. So it was during that period of time when I was doing a lot of volunteering in the schools, and also did some volunteering at a community theater. I started acting in community theater just for a fun hobby.
Okay.
There was a room at this theater that had props and costumes, set pieces. It was a disaster, and it was driving me crazy. I couldn't stand to be in the room. Nobody could find anything. It was just a cluttered mess. And so a friend of mine who worked part-time for the theater, she and I decided to take on that room as a project. So we went through everything in the main part of the room. There were like 8 closets. They also had a small storage unit that had a bunch of stuff, and it was just a disaster. So we went through every single item that theater owned, and we sorted it and got rid of a lot. We put the rest in bins, and we labeled, and most people probably think of a project like that and just think, oh, that sounds horrible. But for me, it was one of the most fun things I'd ever done.
Okay.
I thought I could do this every day. I could literally do this every day. I love it. So then gradually I found out that organizing was a thing, that people did that for a job. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I found NAPO, National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals, and thought, okay, well, what if when I'm ready to go back to work, what if I did this? Well, then I found out quickly, okay, that'd be great, but you couldn't just like go interview and get a job. You would have to actually start a business. And I thought, oh, okay, well, forget that. I don't know anything about starting a business. I mean, I did some things career-wise, but I'm a full-time mom now, and I don't see that happening. So for many years, I let that fear stop me because I just thought that was something I was not capable of doing. And then finally, my husband and I got to empty nest stage of life. And it was kind of like you got to either do it now or just forget about it. And we had a lot of good conversations on hiking trails and bicycle trails about, not living with regrets someday if you don't try something. And
And not limiting yourself with
Yeah.
those, belief that I can't do this, I can't be an entrepreneur. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. My husband was the best. He just said, I know you're really scared about that part of it, but there are people that are less smart and less driven than you that start businesses all the time. And if it doesn't make it, no big deal. You go back to doing something different. But I don't want you to
Hats
regret
off to him. I like that. That support, that meant a lot.
He's
Sorry.
like, he's been just beside me every step of the way, has helped me.
Beautiful.
I mean, just amazing. So this was the summer of 2016. And so I started doing training classes. I got a mentor in the area.
All right.
Learned everything. Got some coaching and how to start a business, all that kind of stuff. And then took this giant leap of faith, and it's been just the most amazing journey. I have loved every second of it. I've been scared to death. It took me years to get over that whole imposter syndrome. I can't believe people pay me for this. I don't know what I'm doing, and it's kind of come full circle to where, sorry about that, to where now I feel like after several years, I felt like, okay, I've got something good to offer. I'm able to help people. I love what I'm doing. And now I'm actually transitioned away from client work, and I'm focusing on my writing and speaking. So, which is a change from when I talked to you before. I never even thought I would write or speak. That was not something I had experience with, but it's kind of interesting when you're following God, when you're following your heart, when you're following where your passions lead.
Yes.
You can go all kinds of places with that.
Absolutely. With integrity and with courage, even if you don't know everything about it, the doors open, the people come to you that you need. I truly believe in that grace and providence, that if you'll just consciously commit. That is a great story. I'm glad I asked that. That was not the answer I expected. That was much better than the answer I expected. But I can also say, as someone with a background in healthcare, I majored in biology, went to dental school, and it is very important within that profession, as you know, within science, spent a lot of times in labs and healthcare. It's all about organization, knowing where things are, having them properly labeled. Because they can lead to some tragedies if it's not done correctly. So you had a natural gift, and you also had some training in being detail oriented and efficient. And I am so happy that it led you to this path. And now you're writing, organizing, speaking. Wow. What a great career path it's been. Well, let's
something interesting that I never would have thought there would be any connection between my experience in medicine and organizing, but I actually figured out, of all the things of organizing, the part that I liked best is very similar to the part that I liked best in medicine. So I loved that whole crafting a diagnosis and a treatment plan. Okay, here's what my patient says. Here's what I see in the exam. Here's what I see from the labs and the imaging and all that. And so, what do I think the issue is, and what are we going to do about it? So,
right.
And then with organizing, when I'm working with a client, and here's what they're telling me the issues are, what's not working in their life. Here's what I see in their home, what I hear when we're speaking about this, and here's what I think would be most helpful, and let's put a plan in place. And so they are kind of related. And then the education, I feel like a lot of what I do, whether I'm speaking in public or working with a person, I am educating. So it kind of all works together.
Those are very interesting parallels. And I'm going to tell you, that's a TED Talk right there.
Oh, yeah?
Just make a note of that. I just did my first TED Talk, and those are the most interesting ones, where you draw parallels between things that are seemingly dissimilar. So
well, thanks. That sounds awesome. That's another one of those, I don't know, a TED Talk, that's scary, but maybe I need to go there.
It is scary, but it sounds like along your path, everything has been about helping others. And those talks have helped me over the years. And I know that they help people. So just think about it. I'm just planting. I don't get any commission from them, but that's what came to mind from my spirit as you were talking.
That's cool.
So onto the clutter thing, our first topic here this evening. How does, and I like that analogy of a, diagnosis, evaluation, assessment, diagnosis, and treatment plan in terms of clutter. But how does clutter affect us? What are some of the symptoms, if you will? And why does it matter if, yes, clutter, but if I can find what I need eventually, why does it matter?
Oh, in clutter, I have a love-hate relationship with clutter. I love it because I understand it and I know how to help people deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it because, it's such a distraction. So when you say the word clutter, the thing that most people think is a pile of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, a pile of stuff is definitely clutter, but it's so much broader and deeper than that. The way I like to define clutter is anything that distracts us from our priorities.
Wow.
So, or anything that keeps us from living the life we want to live, or there's lots of different ways, but it can be more than stuff when you define it that way. And I see clutter not just if I walk into a home that has piles of stuff in the way, but I see clutter in my own life in the way that I fill my calendar. If I don't watch it, I fill my calendar so full of stuff because I'm a go-getter, I'm a people person, whatever, to where I don't have peace in my mind. And when I'm somewhere, I'm not even present in the moment because I got my to-do list spinning through my head. There's mental clutter,
Yes.
schedule clutter, and all of it distracts us from what is the most important thing in our lives. And my own personal clutter was a real damaging thing in my relationships, in my family. And a lot of it came from my phone.
Oh, yes.
So there were years, and I'm not proud to admit that for years, my family was begging me to get off my phone. They're trying to have a conversation with me and I'm scrolling my Facebook feed.
Oh, I hate that. I hate that so much.
Whatever. I mean, I honestly, in fact, I had to get off Facebook except for with my business, but just so many ways where I was missing out. I was treating those kinds of things as more important than my husband and my children. And, and some of the reasons that the whole schedule clutter for me, keeping my calendar full,
Mm-hmm.
I thought that, I'm a go-getter and I thrive on busyness. But the thing is, internally, my anxiety was just a crazy mess. And I think I was keeping my life full so that I didn't have time. I didn't have to face those really tough questions like, what is my purpose? What are my priorities? I mean, I know the right answers as a Christian. I mean, it's supposed to be God first and then family and all this stuff. But if you looked at the way I lived my life and my thoughts and the way I spent my money and the way I spent my time, it did not match up with that. And so when you have a mismatch in your priorities and how you spend your life, it's going to catch up with you at some point. So clutter, the broad answer, clutter distracts us from our priorities. And so the ways it affects us, if it's physical stuff, we can lose time because we can't find things.
Mm-hmm.
We lose money because we buy things we already have. Client had 17 caulk guns in his garage because he kept buying them because he couldn't find them. And so that's wasted money. It can damage relationships. There are people that haven't had friends or family in their home for years because their house is a cluttered mess.
Right.
It damaged my relationships with my family because I couldn't stop just go, or stuck to my phone.
Mm-hmm.
There is a link when I was doing research for my book, there are studies that show a link between clutter and depression. And we're talking about physical clutter here. Clutter and depression, clutter and excess weight, clutter and decreased test scores in children raised in a cluttered environment. You think about in a kid's school environment, they got a cluttered house and they're a disordered home environment. They can't find their homework. They can't figure out a quiet place to study. I mean, it's just
Right. The time wasted, time lost. And
and
that's frustrating. That's like looking for your keys and it's time to go.
yeah,
Everybody can relate to that, whether you have clutter or not. That is stressful.
absolutely. It really just it's a soul sucker, clutter. And so the more that we can clear everything that doesn't matter, and we can't necessarily, spend 24/7 in the word and in church. And there are certain things we have to do to live,
Right.
but we also know that we can pare down our possessions. We can pare down the things that we spend our time on. We can pare down what we think about so that we are able to focus on the important. And that's kind of my mission, is helping people figure out what is the excess in their life and what can they do about it? Because peace and order go hand in hand.
Yes, very much so.
And order and organization and that peace, it's all straight from God, I mean, I love some home edit and Marie Kondo and all that kind of stuff. And I like some cool bins from the Container Store, but the author of order is God. From day one, Genesis 1-2, got, confusion and chaos, and he turned it into the universe with a very ordered way. He's the creator of all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That was beautiful. That was not only great information, but a testimony. Thank you for sharing that. And the point you made about the phone, just that addiction to, and we know that it's designed to be that way, whether it's the information, the people that pop up, the colors, the sounds, none of that is random for anyone who's really looked into, what's behind that machine. It's all designed to keep you on there. And that is not one of my problems, but I find it exasperating when I'm with someone or trying to be with someone. I remember being on a date and I was introducing the guy I was with to some new friends, a couple, and we're talking and I look over during this conversation with my friends and he's going through his phone and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Because my friends are looking at me and looking at him like, he can't. We had been there about 20 minutes. He could not stay focused on that. And he was literally looking at what other people were doing instead of being engaged with that matter. And I hadn't thought of it as clutter. Mine is busyness, not like I'm just throwing other people under the bus. And I've gotten so much better of blocking off time. And I have to literally block it off or I'll feel it because I'm forever being called upon, or I just have a compulsion to help other people with something, but it was killing me literally. So wow, you just, I love these light bulb moments. So thank you and for being transparent about your own self and your journey. So we obviously have two Christians talking here. And when you pitched to me about coming on the program, what really got me, I got to be honest, was the title of your book, Unholy Mess, What the Bible Says About Clutter. That's an amazing title.
Thank you.
I've been in church all my life. I'm sure I heard it and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say, but I really couldn't say anything in particular if I was pressed to give a scripture about clutter. So do tell, what does the Bible say about clutter?
Oh, wow. I mean, there's just so much there. I mean, on the one hand, the word clutter is not even in the Bible. I don't know that it's a word that was used during biblical times. True. But that being said, the issue of clutter is all through the Bible. And we're talking, in theory, it's all about what you're putting first. Oh. Because I talk about clutter distracting us from our priorities, and God is our creator and sent his son for us, and he wants and deserves to be first place in our lives. And what do? We fill our lives with all kinds of stuff And it can be stuff, like I've been saying, it can be stuff, it can be activities, it can be digital stuff. We're trying to, most of the time, what we're doing is we're trying to fill this hole that we all have. And the only thing that'll fill it is our relationship with God. That is the only thing that will give us true contentment. And so sometimes we think, if I have this physical thing, I'm going to be happy. And it's not wrong to buy stuff. It's not wrong to own stuff. I got a whole bunch of stuff right behind me. But I know that ultimately it's not going to bring me contentment. It might for a few minutes, or it might for a little while. But so, the Bible talks, there's several times when the Bible talks about building up treasure in heaven, not on earth. And so it's what you spend your time on, what you spend your money on. It can be your stuff. It can be your lifestyle. So one of my favorite scriptures where I feel like the Bible talks about clutter, before I decided to name my book Unholy Mess, I almost called it Bigger Barns, because I love the scripture in Luke 12 so much. I don't know if you remember, someone comes to Jesus, is having an argument with his brother about something, and it says, Jesus, tell my brother to split the estate with me or something. And so Jesus goes into this parable about a person who, a farmer who has a boomer of a crop one season. And he has so much crops that his barns are not big enough to hold them. And so he's like, well, gosh, now what am I going to do? I got all this produce and I don't have enough room. And so he has this bright idea. He says, I know, I'll tear these down and build bigger barns, then I'll have plenty of room to store all my stuff. And then I'll be able to just put my feet up and rest and relax and be merry because I got plenty stored up. I don't have to worry about anything. And then Jesus says, you are a fool, because this very night your life could be demanded from you. And then what will happen with all your stuff? And he says, and basically he turns around and says, and we are fools if we build up treasure and are not for ourselves, but are not rich toward God. So when I started teaching a class that eventually became Unholy Mess, my husband kind of coined I think it was 2020 at the time, like a modern day translation of that Luke 12. And he was saying, okay, so we can't relate to the barns and the crops. Yeah, we got some farmers in my area in East Tennessee, but maybe we can't relate to that. But maybe we would say, this person, if Jesus were teaching it now, he might say, so this man had a really good return on his investments and his 401k. And he's like, I don't have enough room for my stuff. So I know I'll rent a storage unit and there I keep up. So yeah, that's one of my favorites. But again, it's not just the stuff, but it's what we treasure besides treasuring God and our relationship with him and being closer to him and teaching others about him.
Beautiful. And our priorities and knowing what's important to you, because sometimes that's the problem. And getting pulled every which way is that you don't really have your priorities in focus and in order. And I remembered that once you started telling it. Initially, I didn't, but it just reminded me that, a lot of Jesus's miracles were performed when he was on his way somewhere else. But that he had structured, his life and travels in such a way that he had time for others. And I think that's a sign of clutter. If you don't have time for the unexpected, for anyone else, for the grandkid to, just come up and give you a hug, every interruption annoys you, then, there's no space. There's no space. And that does impact your family a lot. I remember my youngest son said to me, I had, back in the day, we had those big paper calendars up and everybody's schedule. Well, mine was so busy. I was practicing and writing, and I had a TV show. I was doing all these things that it was just full. I had a separate one from the family. And I remember my youngest son looking at it one evening as I was preparing dinner hurriedly. And he said, Mommy, is there any room on here for me to do something with you?
Oh
my heart.
Yeah, just like, it just goes right there.
Because I felt like getting him to his practice and getting him to school and all of that, but that really wasn't me serving him in the way that I needed to connect as a mother. And I reacted immediately. I got off the boards, I quit the TV show. I was like, I needed that wake up call that you don't have time for me, when I thought I'm doing all this stuff for you so you can go into the community with our good name and with all these skills you learned from camp and this and that. So I was cluttering up their life and mine. And I'm thankful to this day that he brought that to my attention.
Oh, wow. That's a wonderful story. And and what he wanted was you and your time.
That's what he wanted. All that stuff I was doing, and all he wanted was, just play, go walk, let's ride our bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of my decision to not work with clients anymore, part of it was to have more time to write and speak, but honestly, part of it was, and I think the older I get, I'm realizing how much that just we don't have any promise of any amount of time with anyone. I've been helping take care of my father. He, up until a few months ago, he was living independently and helping mow people's yards and stuff. And then within the space of a few weeks, he went from that situation to, we've got to not only get him out of his apartment because he has to climb stairs, and I didn't realize how much trouble he was having, to he's not really able to take care of himself, to go to the hospital. He's in kidney failure. And we've got to get him into assisted living. And so he ended up staying with me and my husband for a while. And he required 24/7 care for a while. And initially, I'll have to say, it was a bother to me because it was interfering with my life, and I want my life back. And then, sorry.
No, that's tough. I'm so sorry.
Well, and fast forward, he's settled in assisted living. He's doing well. He's still got a lot going on. But the thing was, I was in the ideal place to give him what he needed because I had the background in medicine. So I could help him understand what was happening to him. I could go to the appointments, ask the questions, explain it. With my work as an organizer, I could help him deal with all his stuff. He was a cluttered mess, and I'd known that for years. He wouldn't let me help him, and now he can't do it himself, so I had to do it. And so even though it was it's been some of the hardest months of my life, it's exactly where God wanted me. And I needed to know that. So in order for me to be more available to my aging parents, this is one of 5, considering my husband's family and my stepfather. Again, it's like God has been showing me what I need for you right now is for you to be available for them because they need you.
And that's a little startling too. I lost my father last year. I've had things happen with other family members that they needed me. And it's a little startling when you think of yourself as being a giver and a supporter. And then, you have one of those moments where you really look at yourself and you're like, oh my goodness, my attitude though, I might be doing it, but my attitude around this is not right. And, hopefully you can have that talk with yourself and adjust, which is a sign of maturity that I'm not perfect, and I can do better. But it does kind of wake you up when that happens. And I'm glad you were able to help him and that he's doing okay right now, because that is a tough battle.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that whole role reversal, kind of having to parent my parent and
right. Which doesn't go over real well easily because they are used to having that position, and trying to navigate that can be tricky.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
What are I appreciate you bringing to mind what the Bible says about clutter, but for someone who just doesn't really know how to go about it, they're overwhelmed with it, what would you advise them to do first so it doesn't seem like they're trying to eat an elephant in one bite?
Oh, and that sense of overwhelm is such a paralyzer, when things are bad and whatever the category of our life, when we get to that whole like, oh my gosh, it's so bad. I don't even know where to start. And so you're just stuck in your tracks because just, it just seems like I'll never be able to do this. I'm not, yeah. So I totally understand that overwhelm. So I'll kind of give some tips about the different kinds of clutter. The physical clutter is the one that people think about the most, and it's maybe the easiest to describe. So on the physical clutter, I think it always, so if people have a situation with a lot of physical clutter, just a lot of stuff around, there's several directions you can go with it. First of all, one of the biggest sources of clutter is not having regular habits as far as your home. And I like to talk about the big three: laundry, dishes, and daily pickup. If they can make or break you. As far as like the laundry, I mean, I've been in homes where there's like 15 baskets of clean laundry that don't get put up, or you're just living out of the baskets because you don't take the time to put them.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a client's house whose kitchen, the sink is continuously filled with dirty dishes. The counter's totally full of dirty dishes all the time because they just don't have the regular habits in their life. And I'll just set this here just for now. And then before you realize it, there's just stuff everywhere. So I always say, let's back up and take a look at daily habits. If you don't have regular systems and habits in place for those kinds of things, that's an easy place to start. Even if you just pick one. If you're just going to pick one, I would say start with dishes. Dana K. White, her website and podcast, A Slob Comes Clean. She's really great she's got a lot of really good information for situations like this. And she's really big on daily habits and starting with dishes. But a regular routine with the dishes, a regular routine with the laundry that includes actually putting the clean ones up. And then I'm telling you what, 5 minutes at the end of every day, picking up stuff and putting it back. It sounds like a tiny thing. It can make a world of difference.
Loading the dishwasher. Yeah.
And just putting things away. So the daily habits is big as far as physical clutter. And then if you've got just a lot of excess stuff and you don't even know, where do I start? What room do I start with? How do I even know if it's clutter? For those, I would say defining what is cluttered and what's not. I like to break it down to two really simple questions. One is, do I love it? Do I use it? And if you can't say a resounding, absolutely yes, 100% no doubt to both of those questions, you ought to seriously consider letting it go.
Okay, what if it's something I use just a couple of times a year or some specialized something? Do you mean I haven't used it in 2 or 3 years? I never use it, or how does that go?
Well, it kind of depends. Okay, so something that, yes, you use it, but it's very infrequently. But if you I would say in that situation, if you know for sure that you're going to use it a couple times a year and it's not taking up a ton of space and messing up an area, I would keep that.
Okay.
But there are so many people that I'm talking like a basement full, an attic full, whatever, of, well, better keep it just in case. I might need it someday. And they got like boxes and boxes of that stuff. Even if they needed it, they don't even know where to find it. And the sentimental stuff, I love it, but I never use it. It's like, okay, well, you got 25 boxes of that stuff. Like, how special is it really? Because you probably haven't looked at that in 50 years. So,
you said, how special is it?
And I don't know who first said this, but if everything is special, nothing is special.
True.
All of that is not equally special. And I love to tell people, and this is another Dana K. White thing, container concept. Okay, keep some special stuff. I got some special stuff, but I have one bin of mementos. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to have only one, but tell yourself, okay, I don't need 2 shelving units full of sentimental stuff. I'm going to go and I'm going to limit myself to whatever your limit is. This amount of space, this many containers, and actually like pull it out and pick out the best. And if it's really special and you love it, figure out a way to use it or display it. I mean, boxed up for years and years is not a good way to treat it, you know? Like, I mean, I even have issues with this. Before we moved, we were going down to this tiny space and I found boxes of old quilts that my husband's grandparents had given us.
Quilts, those are valuable though.
Beautiful. And there they were in the attic. Well, did they make those quilts so they could be stored for years in the attic? They made them to be used.
Right.
So I said, all right, so either they're going to be used in my home, displayed in my home, or they're going away. They are not going to be boxed up anymore. That's ridiculous. So figure out a way to use it or let it go. So do I love it? Do I use it to define the clutter?
What about my heater went out the other day and it's cold in Texas right now. And my neighbor does HVAC stuff and he climbed up there. And what I have a bunch of in my attic is not financial papers or anything. I follow the IRS rules, but boxes that electronics came in, whether it's my printer, my TV or whatever, because I moved a few times, but it's been 8 years. I have no intention of moving anywhere, but I remember how much I had to pay for boxes like one time many moves ago. Yeah. So he's up there and he goes, why do you have all these boxes? These are in the way. He couldn't get to the HVAC. Uh-huh. That's a losing thing, huh? I need to go up there and get those out of there.
Okay. So they are in the way. They're causing an issue.
Yeah.
You said you don't have any intention of moving anytime soon.
Okay.
Now there are some specialty boxes like for instance, the box for the flat screen TV, and it's got the styrofoam. If you got, and you think you might move, that's a good one to save. But just regular boxes, they're in the way. Even if you had to buy boxes, they're not that much.
Yeah. Okay.
People, I mean, I've been in homes that have all their little Apple boxes, you know, from their phones and all their electronic stuff. And man, you can't even recycle those because they're plastic coated. You can't even rip them, whatever. There's no need to save them unless, now they do, sometimes they will come in handy. I've even used them and seen people use them, like use the box and the bottom and the top in a drawer to do little items, whatever. Oh. I love repurposing.
So repurpose them. Okay. That makes this, I'm guilty of that one too. And you're right. I think I'm gonna need a serial number or something. So, okay, I have a box issue here. You got me thinking here. I was thinking, I'm pretty organized. I got it together. I know I have an issue with papers, especially scientific or articles or whatever. And I'm getting better with that. I can make stuff digital now, but okay, I got some work to do. All right.
You know, and everybody kind of has their little things. Like I don't have that much physical clutter because we moved down to this space, but I still tend to want to buy too much decor. So that's kind of my weakness. So I have to establish policies like in this place, one in, one out, because we can't keep piling up. So like I just, right before this, I bought a couple of shirts. So now a couple of things got to go out of my closet. I already know what they're going to be.
I like that. I like that. Keep the balance. One in, one out. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory.
Oh, goodness gracious. Yes. Some people probably need to do like 1 in, 10 out, but
yes, that's a good place to start too. But this is opening some eyes, and you're giving great examples too. And you got me sitting here thinking about some of my stuff. So I'll have some time off here soon, and I have actually not just a way, but a reason as well to do it. So I appreciate that because I need the motivation of why it's not bothering anything, but it is.
Yeah,
it is.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Let's talk about business owners. You mentioned the theater that you were at, and I've been in different offices and places where they do have those areas where it is just totally unorganized. It's like the catch-all of the business.
Yeah.
What do you say to the business owners? Are they the same organizing tips as residential organizing, or is that different in terms of what questions you ask yourself?
Yeah, and a lot of the tips are the same. But I think with businesses, I tend to focus more on the time management, productivity kind of stuff. I was talking about having the daily routines in your home, like laundry, dishes, and pickup. So on the business end, anything that you do on a regular basis for your business, you need a system for it. If you don't have one, you need to establish one. And it can be big things and little things. Just so example, I think it was years before I realized that when people emailed me to ask about my organizing business, what I do, what I charge, all that, and I would type this response, and then I realized I'm typing the same thing like all the time.
Mhm.
And Gmail has templates, Outlook has something, Gmail has, and that's a tiny thing, but I swear it has saved me so much time to make some templates for common email responses. So there's an example of it
Great.
took me 5-10 minutes to make templates for my most common emails. And now I can go in there and personalize it and say, it was great to talk to you today. Below is some information. So that's a thing. Anything you do regularly, you need a system. I do some volunteer organizing for nonprofits when I have time, because I just love so many groups doing great work that could never afford to pay for organizing. And so
Nice.
one example I like to give, this group that was doing after school clubs for girls on the run, great group. And their problem was that when they would get to the end of the school year and they had all their supplies, or they would have a race day and they had all their supplies, they come in exhausted and they just dump all this stuff.
Mhm.
Nobody had time right then to put it all away. But the thing is that they didn't have any kind of routine for, okay, eventually that stuff needs to get put up.
Mhm.
Needs to, So I said, okay, so first of all, we need to organize all this stuff you've got, get it labeled, make sure you know what you can find. And then now you need a system. So we established what I call a drop zone. You come in from your after school club or your race, and you got all this stuff and you don't have time or the energy to put it up, but here's where you can put it. For now, this is a drop zone. And then now you need to have the system for, you schedule somebody within a certain amount of time. Your job is to put that stuff up.
Good.
And the next time come in here, we drop it here and then we put it here. And so we establish systems for that. So that's enough. So establishing and keeping systems for regular tasks is huge in business. And those are just two small examples of that.
Okay, two great examples too. That's I like to say I'd like to have a moment in every podcast and every blog that's worth the price of admission. And for the business owner, you've said a lot of great strategies and tips, but for the business owner, that is something tantamount to keep in mind. I like that.
Oh, okay. So this one is really big as far as the mental clutter. And the mental clutter, I don't think we realize how much it keeps us from being productive and at peace.
Mhm.
Because we got so much swirling around in our head. So I learned this from David Allen, Getting Things Done. I don't know if you know that time management productivity book. I didn't even read the whole book. It was like the first third of it, but it was worth the price of admission for these two tips from David Allen. So, and this can apply at home or in business.
Mhm.
A lot of the reasons we have mental clutter is because we're trying to keep all these things in our head. Things like, okay, I got to stop at the grocery on the way home. Oh, and I got to send that text to so-and-so. And I've got this coming up and we're trying, it's all in here. And we're scared to death. We're going to forget it. We get home, dang it, I forgot to, there's so much stress centered around that.
Right.
He calls those things that are swirling in our head that are not in an ideal state. He calls them open loops. And he says, you got to get your open loops into trusted systems. So what that means is all those things that I'm stressing out about that are in my head, I got to figure out, okay, how am I going to remember that? Am I going to put it on a note, a physical note? Am I going to put it, and I talk about my phone distracting me, but it's also a super useful tool to put a reminder. Like I had to say, remind me at 12:55 that I've got this meeting coming up. Remind me when I get home, it can pop up with my GPS. that I need to set out the thing to take to. There's so many really neat tools for that, to get those things out of your head and into something that you can count on. I need to get it in the calendar. I need to get it into my Google Drive, whatever it is. So
Right.
figuring out, and if you feel like, oh man, there's so much, I don't even know, there's all this stuff in my head, start with a brain dump. It is so useful to sit. I'm all digital, but do this with paper and pen or pencil and just sit and just jot down all the things you're stressing about that you don't know if you have a way to remind you to do them. Get them all out of your head on paper. Don't make it neat, just write it all. Then figure out, okay, what am I going to do with this? And if you get it into a trusted system, your brain is clear, because our brain wasn't meant to hold ideas. It was made to create ideas.
Mm.
So when I'm taking up my brain space, trying to hold on to all this stuff, I'm not capable of doing the writing I want to do, doing the creating I want to do, because I got my head full of my to-do list or whatever.
And we can only process so much.
Yes, we do. We physically do not have the ability to hold on to that in our brain.
And I see that so much with not to cast dispersion on men, but I see that a lot with my male friends, that they still think they can just remember everything like they did when they were 20. I'm like, you didn't have as much going on when you were 20. You were trying to remember, go to the gym and work out, go to work. And now you've got all these things going on. And I am big on, I like analog, but I use my Google Calendar immediately when I get a date, because I know it's just gone. And when you said that, I thought about, I kept forgetting to take the trash out. And I would hear the truck, and I start work at 7 a.m. I would hear the truck. I'm trying to log off and run and get the trash every week. You would think after all these years, I would remember. And finally, I got Alexa, make sure she doesn't come on and start talking to me to remind me.
Without her.
The night before and the day of, Dr. Mo, remember to take the trash out? And I'm like, oh yeah. And it was, I don't think about it anymore, because I know she's going to tell me. Some people got Google, Siri, Alexa, and we're not using them like we could to work for us, to help us.
Yes, that's a perfect example. And taking the time to set the reminder was like this much time, and it saved your brain and your stress level. Yeah. So this little thing. The other great David Allen tip from getting things done. We talked about the overwhelm with the physical stuff, right? Well, we have overwhelm with business stuff too, whatever. And so he talks about, all right, what is the next actionable step? Okay, I got this humongous thing, and I put it off because it's so big, and I am like the queen of this. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. I hate it. But like, as soon as I take one little step, and then I take the next little step, and something about breaking it down, taking that first step, I see some progress. Then I'm like, you know what? This is not so bad. Why did I put this off so long? The next actionable step, break it down really small.
Sweet. Yeah. Lots of good tips from you, David Allen, the Bible. This has been phenomenal. I wish we could talk longer, but we're getting to the end of the episode. Before we go, however, Angie Heish, please tell listeners how they can reach you for consultation, to book you for a speaking engagement, find you on social media. Yeah,
so let me tell you one more thing I'm excited about.
Please do.
So I do have my book, Unholy Mess, What the Bible Says About Clutter. You can find it on Amazon. However, I am right now in the process of partnering with my friend, former organizer and author, Leanna George. We are teamed up for a podcast that will launch on January 4th.
Yay!
And a book that will publish in September 2023 called Uncluttered, Shaping Your Heart and Home for What Matters Most. So
congratulations. And thank you for adding the year, because these podcasts are evergreen. So
yes, absolutely. So our first 3 episodes will launch on January 4th, Apple, Spotify, Google, and then our book in September 2023. And it's the same, it's similar to Unholy Mess. It's the connection between faith and organizing, and it'll be each episode will be 15-20 minutes, stories, inspiration, practical steps, that kind of thing. So here in just like a few days, literally, we'll have our website will be up, uncluttered.faith, and you'll be able to catch our podcast and have a YouTube channel. It's on video. So super excited about that. I'm not doing, as I mentioned before, I'm not doing any client work right now, but I love to speak virtually and in person. The easiest way to get me is through probably email, Angie@shipshape.solutions. And love to talk to anyone who wants some help for either themselves or their business, their civic group, their mom's group, whatever. Just figuring out how to go from chaos and disorder to order and peace. I love what I do. I'm very passionate about helping people kind of simplify their life, and so they can spend time doing what they want to do, what's important to them.
Absolutely. Making space for joy and the good things. Well, this has been delightful. Thank you so much. And I wish you a lot of success with your new collaboration, your book, and your podcast.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mo. It's been a pleasure.
Indeed.